evening. International law expert Րաֆֆի-Ֆիլիպ Քալֆայանի will be giving an interview to Public TV tonight. Mr. Khalfayyan, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for your invitation.
Your family has experienced and survived the genocide. What's the story behind it?
Well, my 4 branches of the family came from 4 different cities of the Ottoman Empire: Malatya, Kharpest, Afyonkarahisar, and Istanbul. But the most detailed narrative that I used to know is the one of my grandmother on my father's side, who was a native from Afyonkarahisar, so a family of bourgeois Armenians involved in the trade business. And as you know, Afyonkarahisar is in the middle of nowhere. This is not an Armenian region historically. It's in the center of Turkey. And she survived in April, so 1915, thanks to the let's say, caution that her parents had about her. So they sent the little child. She was the younger of the kids. They sent her to Izmir, to Smyrna, where the grandmother was staying. And so she went there with an aunt who was 17, 18. So they put her in a train from Afyonkarahisar to Smyrna. At the train station of Afyonkarahisar, so people tried to change their train and put them in the train to Konya. And Konya, as you may know, was a very central point of a deportation at that time, so in April 1915. And fortunately, one of the employees of the train stations knew about the family of my grandmother, because the grand uncle of my grandmother was a top executive of a railway company. So getting from Afyonkarahisar to Smyrna. So he called that a grand uncle in Smyrna, who gave them some very strict instructions to keep my grandmother and her aunt in the good train to Smyrna. So she survived this stage like this, but she lost all the family. So parents and 4 brothers and sisters. She never saw them again. And unfortunately, in September 1922, so happened, so the, let's say, forced deportation or leaving of Armenians and Greeks from Smyrna. So it was in September 1922. And so again, she has been obliged to flee, and she survived again this new experience. So that's how she came to France afterwards, after a short transit in Greece, in Piraeus harbor.
And since then, your family has been living in France. Did I get you right?
Yes. All of them are native of France, especially my parents are native from France.
Mr. Khalfayyan, President Macron posted in Armenia on April 24th, stating that France commemorates genocide as a sign of unity with Armenia. How Paris commemorates a genocide, the French and the Armenians alike?
This is now becoming a tradition every April 24th. So officials come to commemorate the victims of the genocide before the statue of a memorial, so which is located in central Paris. And for the last years, the presidents of the French Republic came and attended this event. So this year, for probably some agenda reasons, it was not the president, but the Ministry of Interior who came and attended officially and speak officially in the name of the government.
And the Minister of External Affairs will be in Armenia soon.
Yes, this is what I read this morning, yes.
Turkey-Armenia normalization is in process currently. Do you believe that pushing for genocide recognition hinders reconciliation between Turkey and Armenia?
Well, it does not hinder, indeed, but to my humble opinion, it brings nowhere. So let me explain why I do say that.
Excuse me, are you saying that the diaspora should not be pushing for genocide recognition?
No, this is not exactly what I'm saying. I'm just saying that we can dream of recognition of genocide by Turkey, but Turkey has firmly said at many occasions that they will never recognize the genocide. And for some reason that we will come back on, but they have firmly stated this. And so I don't see where this insistence will bring us unless to a deadlock. We are in deadlock with Turkey about this issue. And that's why for many years now, I'm trying to convince the Armenian communities and also the Armenian governments to follow a parallel direction, which is focusing on the reparations process. So to explain, I mean, even if we have tomorrow 100 countries, so having recognized the Armenian genocide.
Over 30 right now.
Yeah, and it will not, convince Turkey to recognize it. And this is where we have a problem. Turkey will recognize it the day they will become a full democracy, and where people are really free of their opinions and expressions. And unfortunately, we are not there, and the current geopolitics and all the turbulences worldwide will not favor this situation, at least in the coming years. So, as some people have said before, I mean, the recognition issue is strictly domestic issue of Turkey. Armenians have nothing to prove anymore. I mean, the facts are already proven.
Speak for themselves.
Well, they don't only speak for themselves, but the scholars, the researchers have done their work. And the more we go further, the more we are finding new proofs of what happened.
To get back to the issue that we were discussing, Mr. Khalafian, you believe that the diaspora should be pushing not for genocide recognition, but for reparations. Why?
Yes. So I can explain
what difference
why.
does that make?
The difference is that in order to get some reparations, we don't need to get stuck by the legal issue of a genocide. So today we have two narratives. The Turkish narrative is saying what happened was not a genocide. This was so in the context of First World War, we decided to relocate the Armenians because they were presenting a threat to our country because they made alliances with Russian forces. And on the other side, we have Armenians saying this is a genocide and you have to recognize it. And from once you recognize it, then we will go for reparations. And here the deadlock is there because I have written already about this, and every serious legal scholar knows that today it is not possible to qualify retroactively what happened in 1915 of a genocide. Okay, so the legal qualification of genocide is not possible. Why to be stopped by this? Because Armenians have possibility to engage the state responsibility of Turkey in relation to what happened in 1915 through 1923. The state responsibility, and that's why I have inserted the poster of the ICJ court behind me, is the place where we can claim responsibility of a state in front of the nations. And state responsibility for what happened. And what happened in 1915 was already, according to the Hague Conventions.
Just to clarify, are you suggesting that a lawsuit should be filed against Turkey at ICJ?
Well, before the lawsuits, there are many other steps to engage. Okay, and one of the first steps is to go through other UN mechanisms, and especially asking for Turkey to respond to some questions which have been raised by some UN bodies to them in 2019. So since I am the inspirer and launching of this action, so I can explain briefly what it is about. So I have submitted to three special procedures in Geneva a general allegation about the disappearances of Armenians from 1915 to 1923. Why is that? Because the involuntary and forced disappearances is a special legal avenue which enables to claim for fact-finding until the fate or whereabouts of the disappeared people is clarified. So there is the notion of continuous crime behind this legal definition of forced disappearances. And indeed, what happened to Armenians in the context of this so-called relocation is that they have disappeared, whether dead or kidnapped, hijacked, or converted in Turkish and Muslim families, or just starved in the deserts. And until today, Turkey, the Ottoman Empire, who had a very strict statistical record of the people who have been deported, has not elucidated their fate. They have the names, they have the records, And today, only Turkey can clarify what happened to these people. And this is precisely what three special procedures, from UN in 2019, asked them. They asked them two things. What measures has taken the Turkish government to establish the facts, including the fate or whereabouts of Armenians who were subjected to forced internet displacement, detention, extrajudicial killing, and enforced disappearances? Second questions.
Mr. Khalafyan, before we pass on to the next steps, what you are suggesting is basically legal steps that should be taken against Turkey. Does this not run directly contrary to the normalization process?
Absolutely not, because Turkey officials and recently, so two officials have said the same thing. They said we are ready to normalize friendly and to reestablish friendly relation with Armenians. But at the same time, they are propagating a new version of the history, and especially the Turkish army headquarters head, Hulusi Akar, on the 6th of April, made very strange statements. At the same time that he's saying we are ready to reestablish a good relationship with Armenians, he has developed a new narrative where, saying that the relocation was an obligation to act like this. This was the most realistic practice to solve our issues. And he said all this in the context of a workshop called, I quote the workshop name, Workshop on Creating a Policy Text on the 1915 Armenian Events. So you
basically doubt the sincerity of the intentions of the Turkish government when they say we are ready to reconcile with Armenia. That said, 108 years after the genocide of Armenians, the Armenians in NK, Nagorno-Karabakh, are blockaded by Baku, facing an existential threat one more time. What are the legal international preventive mechanisms to check another tragedy from happening?
Well, they are quite well known in Armenia by all our colleagues working on these issues. At the time being, there are some conventional mechanisms. The most effective and the most known is of course the International Convention on Prevention and Repression of a Genocide. The preventive function of this convention is as much important as the repressive component of the convention.
The question is, does it work? In fact, Armenia is involved in legal proceedings at Hague with piles upon piles of evidence on ethnic discrimination, on torture of prisoners of war, the blockade of Lachin, as I mentioned, the key high road that resulted in a humanitarian crisis in Nagorno-Karabakh. These proceedings may take up years. Now, the question is, how effective are they, and will Baku ultimately see the the consequences of the law enforcement?
Decisions which are made by international tribunals are binding. Okay, this is the theory, but in practice, in order they be effective, they need to be enforced, and to be enforced, there is no international mechanism to enforce the decisions of international courts.
Why embark on a legal journey that will have no consequences? Is this what you're saying?
Yes, but because if you are in the weak side, you have no other arm. and in the end, justice will prevail. And this is the only thing we can do so far. Of course, we can buy some very efficient arms, weapons, new technologies, but at the time being, the law remains one of our best instruments.
Thank you, Mr. Khalafyan.
No mention.
International law expert Philip Րաֆֆի-Քալֆյան has given an interview to Public TV tonight.